Hi everybody, Dana Litwin here again, and welcome back to Tuesday Tips for Leaders of Volunteers. Today, talking about recruitment plans for volunteers, but really community engagement in general. But do you have a recruitment plan? And recruitment's the number one topic I get asked about all of the time. I have a couple of webinars this month in February coming up, and I'll link to register to those free webinars about creating a recruitment plan and really a marketing campaign to recruit volunteers. And really, if you start with the idea of if you don't have a plan and you're not collecting information and data about volunteer recruitment, the good, the bad, and the neutral, and everything in between, then you don't really know where to start from. And this ties into a previous Tuesday Tips and webinar I did, and I'll link to the Tuesday Tips with the webinar link up here on first contact to first shift for volunteer recruitment. But this is talking about a larger overall plan or campaign for volunteer recruitment that you can adjust as needed. So when you're developing a volunteer recruitment strategy or plan, you want to have some guidelines. What are the goals for recruitment beyond numbers of hours and shifts and warm bodies? Think about program and mission impacts by volunteers, and that really should be central to the plan. There's also a really great tool that Karina Vargas created, a little spreadsheet that I'll also link to below, that kind of helps you assess what volunteer programs have the most kind of energy or enthusiasm or positive impact, and which ones are maybe have been there a long time, but they're not actually helping your clients, your constituents, patients, whatever the service model and cause and mission of your agency is. So I'll link to that as well. But if you think about program and mission impacts by volunteers beyond raw numbers, what's central to the plan is things have to be measured, reported, and then that has to influence any adjustments in recruitment plan and strategy and marketing as needed based on those results. So plan, do, check, act is another video, Tuesday Tips I did, that can kind of help you. And also link to my friend Dr. Sue's blog, Dr.Sue Carter-Kahl, in Going Beyond the Numbers. We've talked about that before, but just as a refresher. So think about when you're creating a plan, you need some recruitment guidelines. Determine how you'll recruit volunteers, and that's really the meat of the webinars that I'll link to that you can join for free this week and next week. Then identify potential volunteers beyond your usual talent pool, and this is the really crucial part. If we keep going back to the same well of volunteers and the kind of the stereotypes over the last several years and decades of they're older, they're retired, they have the time and the money to volunteer, we actually want to focus more on a diversity of talent pool, because a wider talent pool of potential volunteers really helps all of your recruitment efforts and is a good way to be more connected and reflect the actual makeup of the community that you're working with in your volunteer talent pool, and hopefully in your paid staff talent pool as well. Does not look too different from the communities that you're working within. And you want to also think about what role shift skills are necessary or missing to have better mission impact, and that influences those guidelines. So when you're identifying new talent pools, take ideas from volunteers themselves. You might even empower some volunteers to do a recruitment committee. I've talked a little bit about that in past tips. And then as you begin recruiting volunteers, kind of coming back to where you're collecting data in that first contact to first shift Tuesday Tips and webinar. But as you begin to recruit volunteers, see what those results are. So plan, do, check, act. You have a plan, you start to do the plan, and then you check the results, and then you take actions or you act on what those results are telling you, even if especially if it's surprising, especially if it's interesting and different and not what you expected. And then you can refine your strategy and really invest in retention. So there usually is a bigger issue at play if you're having really high turnover in volunteers or paid employees. Something different could be going on that's a bigger problem with the agency or the culture, but you also have an opportunity as the leader of volunteers with your agency and probably the person with the most headcount to positively impact that culture by making a really solid recruitment and community engagement plan. How you do this is, can the current recruitment efforts be updated and improved? Can you pinpoint what is working and what is not working? And do you, as the leader of volunteers, have the power to make those changes? It might be in the hands of marketing or PR or development departments. So really work closely and collaborate with all of the other departments or teams that have anything to do with community outreach, marketing, messaging, and make sure that all of that is aligned. Who and where? So again, looking at like, who have you typically recruited before? Is that population changing in their demographic? Are they aging out? Are you hoping to reach new, younger populations of volunteer people with, again, different diverse backgrounds? So look at who is typically recruited and where you can reach new and more diverse talent pools. And that's also called targeting audiences if you're talking to the marketing department or you're not already familiar with basic marketing terms. And then retention is a factor of overall volunteer satisfaction. And I had a great conversation recently, Priceless Advice and Tuesday Tips, with my colleague Rosanna Galindo, who I'll be doing these retention and recruitment webinars with this month in February. And she has a great volunteer satisfaction index that you can reach out to her and get for a nominal licensing fee, or if you're in academia, it's free. But if you're doing satisfaction surveys of any kind with your volunteers or community outreach, think about how people can feel empowered and supported and being a volunteer with you. So if people are coming on and having a great experience as a volunteer, their word of mouth is consistently the number one best recruitment tool that you have in your recruitment plan or toolbox. Is someone having a meaningful experience. Doesn't mean it isn't sometimes tough or challenging, but knowing that they're supported with, say, the 3 C's, comfort, convenience, connection. They feel welcomed on the team. They feel like they know their role and they're comfortable with it. Think about how that can be improved for more people to feel welcome, not just maybe certain classic demographics of volunteers you've always gone to or who look like you. And also understand that, yeah, there's a lot of other factors that are out of your control. What's going on in people's lives? It's a really tough time right now. And every volunteer, every person working with your agency at any role or level has a natural life cycle of participation. And some people are there for years or decades. And some people are there with a corporate group one time, and then maybe they get interested and they come back once every year or two, or they can be enticed to connect with your organization in a more regular role if they have a good drop-in experience. So kind of looking at this holistically and then forming a really logical plan of how are you going to do the recruitment, and then check it with different inputs and outputs, which are not the results, just hours and number of people. That's not necessarily success. That's an output that can help you define success, but really do a broader definition of success, that the programs that you're hoping to get more people involved in, what are those metrics look like? What does that impact look like, whatever sector you're in? There can be a lot of turnover as well with paid staff, and that doesn't help. So if that's been a challenge in your organization where you're new to your role, relatively leading volunteers, or there's been a lot of staff turnover, that might actually need to be stabilized and addressed before you try to bring volunteers into a messy or chaotic or toxic culture situation. And it's actually okay in that natural life cycle of volunteers if people leave when they need to leave. So have that some flexibility, have that grace, and use your plan to recruit different kinds of volunteers, different backgrounds, more skills, more languages, more diversity of point of view, and that's automatically going to help connect you with the community that you are working with. So I hope you enjoy these Tuesday tips that I do. If you're not yet subscribed, please do that. If you enjoyed this video or learned something from it, please hit the like and hit the little bell icon to know when I have new videos uploaded just about every week. Again, I'm doing a how to create a recruitment plan webinar this week, and next week I'll put the links to register for that free webinar with the Visas Voices down below. And let me know if you have any ideas for your own Tuesday tips, or you think of someone to guest on the channel for a Priceless Advice interview. I hope you have a great rest of the week. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. Take care.